here's a few news articles that I thought were interesting. This one is from Joseph Cox, a very famous journalist, with a story I've heard many times. And in fact, there used to be a guy, a private investigator at Hope, that would always give talks about this. The credit card companies keep incredible detailed dossiers of everybody in America, and they sell it and resell it and resell it. So all your personal data is just easily available to anybody who pays some money for it. And they show that they can find out everything about Elon Musk, President Biden, and everybody else here. This has been sort of an open secret in the business for a long time. And increasingly, police agencies are learning they can just buy all this data and other people. And some people imagine that there's some privacy, but there's basically no privacy. Everything about you is available with the online, these online things. So it's a thing to know about if you don't know about it. All right, and I'm seeing something else in the chat. Let me see if I can see it over here. When will the cyber competition team be formed? Well, I don't know. That's up to Liz. There's a link on my webpage. You can sign up to apply for the team, and it's up to Liz, who is the coach. When she's going to form them, you can apply there, and we got enough people to form at least one team, so there should be it should be happening. But I'm not in charge of it being done. That's Liz, so I can't tell you when it will happen. So the UK has a really nasty snooping law, and they unlike the United States, has pretty strong restrictions on what law enforcement can do to surveil internet traffic, but Britain has moved away from this with something called the Investigative Powers Act. And the latest one says that companies are not allowed to modify their software in a way that might impair government surveillance without getting permission first. And they say that means they won't be able to put out security updates without asking the government for permission first, and they might say no. And coincidentally enough, this is what China just did. There was a famous tech expert called Naomi Wu who has been publishing videos for years about how to do technical things, and she finally revealed a vulnerability in a keyboard software, which people are using in China. It had a vulnerability that let the Chinese government copy everything you're doing secretly, and she exposed that, so the government came and shut her down. She had posted a video saying she'll not be allowed to post any videos at all. She'll be punished by the government. She doesn't want to leave China because her partner is inside China and is Uyghur and can't leave, so she's accepting just being silenced on the internet. And that's what the UK wants to do also. That's why tech companies are talking about perhaps leaving the UK if the UK persists with this, because it would not be possible to run a secure service in the UK. So we'll see how it goes. They try it here in the United States periodically, and so far they've been beaten back by the Electronic Frontier Foundation and other privacy groups. But there's always a huge struggle between the law enforcement people that want to spy on everything and the privacy groups that want everybody to have strong encryption. So there was a law saying that people should be allowed to access the CAN port in their car to diagnose what's wrong with their car without having to go to an official manufacturer's repair station. And that was very popular and passed by 75% to 25% in a mandate, and the Biden administration reversed it and held it back for 3 years, but now they've changed their mind. And this shows the kind of thing this pushes for. What happened, of course, is what usually happens. The car manufacturers convinced the government that this was a security risk to let people fix their own cars. It's very much like the telephone company has always said, you can't let people fix their own telephones or it will wreck the telephone network. And now they've been sort of persuaded to reverse on that. Right to repair legislation is having a pretty good time for the last year or so. It's beginning to advance again. Just like the privacy issue, this one goes forward and back and forward and back. This is pretty amazing. Texas passed the very first extreme anti-abortion law, even before the Supreme Court reversed Roe versus Wade. They had a law which they carefully designed to dodge Supreme Court oversight. And so a Democrat has struck back with another brilliant move, improving abortion access in Texas by very carefully crafting a law that she can get Republican support for. And what she discovered is Republicans think abortion is any medical treatment that involves getting rid of the fetus, and so do abortion doctors, but in fact, there's two completely separate categories of abortion. One is where you're getting rid of a perfectly viable fetus because the mother doesn't want to have a child, but the other is where there's a serious medical problem, like an ectopic pregnancy, and you must remove it for the life of the mother. And she realized you don't need to use the word abortion for that second category. Came up with another word that's not abortion. Now Republicans can vote for it, because the only thing they care about is the first category. And so this may greatly improve the survivability of pregnant women in Texas. So we'll see how it goes, but this is a good way to move things forward in the world of politics. Find some way to make it palatable to the other side to get some of what you want. So that may help the people in Texas. And Trump has now declared that he wants to have a 10% tariff on all foreign imports from everywhere. Which is the kind of thing he's tried before with his ban on Chinese imports. But people say this is a terrible idea and will make stuff more expensive for Americans everywhere. I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, it's his latest economic plan. And Elon Musk, there's a huge, very interesting article in the New Yorker magazine. I listened to it, an online version of it. A detailed profile of Elon Musk, and the issue is, Elon Musk is so powerful that he is affecting the war in Ukraine and many other things. The United States, NASA is depending on SpaceX to deliver supplies to the space station. Before that, they had to depend on Russia to do it. And in both cases, you're depending on somebody you can't really trust, somebody who's kind of crazy, who changes his mind. And they say in particular, people are getting worried about Elon Musk's use of drugs. Apparently, he takes ketamine and other mind-altering drugs. And it is known to make you sort of megalomaniac and crazy. And that certainly is the way he acts. And the U.S. government is more and more concerned about having really important military activities relying on this crazy guy. Yeah, if you can close that, that'd be good. Anyway, so this is very interesting. This is why when China, about 3 years ago, China started having their first oligarchs. The guy that made the Ant Group was going to basically be the Elon Musk of China, Jack Ma. He introduced two companies. They're about to have initial public offerings. They were going to make him to a multi-billionaire, and China arrested him and locked him up for like 9 months incommunicado, canceled all his IPOs, crushed his companies, and when he finally came out later, he wasn't allowed to say what they did to him, and he was not allowed to ascend to this level of power. And you can see this is what China does not agree that you should let individuals get this rich to where they're as powerful as the whole government. They just crush you and squish you to make the government have control over everything. And you can see how our refusal to do that has created a lot of wealth, but also a lot of these fantastically rich people like Donald Trump and Elon Musk that just sort of stomp around doing whatever they want without anybody having any control over them. So, I have some sympathy for the Chinese system. It's an interesting, difficult issue. Do you want to let capitalism run for maximum wealth regardless of how much collateral damage you do, or do you want to stomp it down to keep it under control and therefore limit your capital growth? There's no simple answer. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say about the news.